I decided to write my at-risk youth paper on suicide. I think this is a very important topic to teach to middle schoolers because although it is not as big of an issue in young children, it is the fourth leading cause of death in young adolescents between the ages of 10 and 14, as it says right here. I think that with teaching middle schoolers about suicide, we can develop resilience for these students, so they will be less likely to think about suicide, or they will be able to help other people who may be thinking about suicide. So, some causes and characteristics. There are three main mental health disorders that do play a big role in suicide, and those are depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. And these disorders, most of the people that commit suicide have been found to have one of these three disorders. So that is definitely something to look for and note when talking about suicide, and a big factor to point out to students. There's also some other factors like whether the family is in a stable environment, whether there was physical abuse, and these are just some of the risk factors, but teaching students what these risk factors are can help them know how to bounce back from these risk factors or help avoid these risk factors. There are 4 out of 5 people who complete suicide do show warning signs, which means that if we educate people about the warning signs in suicide, we can potentially help some people and lower the rate of suicides. So, some of the warning signs include if a person is talking about ending their life, if they give away their most valuable possessions. Obviously, suicide notes are a big one. I personally had a parent that I knew, found a suicide note from her own daughter. So she was able to find that note before her daughter actually went through with the plan to commit suicide. So that saved her. I definitely think, like I mentioned before, that teaching resilience is one of the most important aspects in prevention, because students will, and all people throughout their lives will go through hard and difficult times, and some people can't bounce back, but teaching resilience will help these students bounce back and know that there is more and that they can move on and do other things. So if a student is found to be suicidal or are contemplating suicide, obviously the student will go into counseling. Not just students, anybody will go into counseling, get therapy, and it's really important to have a strong support system behind the person who has thought about suicide or attempted suicide. So having a really strong support system is an intervention factor, but it is also a prevention factor, because having a strong support system lets people talk about things more and be more open. And even if someone is contemplating suicide and they do have a strong support system and they talk to someone about it, that other person may be able to get help for that other person. So on my fact sheet, I defined suicide just so it's a clear-cut definition. I put down the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255, and that is a 24-hour service, and they will get you help if you call, whether you are contemplating suicide or know someone who is contemplating suicide. I wrote down some of the main characteristics and what to look for, because those are important to know so we can help prevent suicide. And then some big facts that I found during my research is that 1 in 10 students that plan to commit suicide, 1 in 14 actually attempt their own suicide. So just because someone plans it doesn't mean they are going to do it, but all of those people the 1 in 10 and the 1 in 14, they all still do need help. And there is not only one thing that causes suicide. There are multiple things, and those are the warning signs that we need to look out for when talking to people, when interacting with our students. Overall, I think I learned that obviously suicide is a very important thing, but there are precautions we can take and teach our students in order for them to be more educated and aware.